So most people in the planet, they're non-physical energy that is projected forth into a physical human body. I am non-physical energy that is projected forth into an Arcturian body.
This is a woman named Teal Swan. Or that's what she calls herself anyways. That's her YouTube channel. Over 1.5 million subbies on that bad boy. She is, for all intents and purposes, a full-blown cult leader. Now, I've talked about her before. It has been a while. But I want to talk about her again. Because I feel like not enough attention is being drawn to this person. As you could tell from this clip, she seems to think that she's some special Arcturian soul fork something or other. Keep listening to this video.
That is projected forth into an Arcturian body. An extraterrestrial body. Now that extraterrestrial being has chosen to then project forth as a human body 12 times. This is the 12th incarnation.
She thinks she's the 12th incarnation of this body, okay? Or of this soul or whatever.
And it's quite funny, ironically, because
agreed, it is. It's hilarious.
Before I even came down, there was an entire panel of beings, Arcturian beings, 6-dimensional beings.
6-dimensional, okay. I know of the 3 space dimensions and then the 4th dimension, which is time. What is the 5th dimension and what is the 6th dimension? Am I missing information here?
Who even chose the way I would look in this life? Would you like to know why?
Please.
So I came down here with the intention of reaching people on every single continent. And to do that, human beings, they like to pay attention to what's attractive, right? But based on where you are geographically, certain things are attractive and certain things are unattractive. So a really beautiful woman down in Africa might come up here to the U.S. and be considered pretty ugly. But there are certain...
She's talking about different beauty standards, Western beauty standards as opposed to other types of beauty standards. Yeah, there are a lot of differences, okay?
Certain type of traits, physical traits, which make a person attractive on every single continent. And so even before I came here, it's not like my looks are so gorgeous to one demographic over another demographic. It's that there will not be a person on the planet, regardless of what country you go to, that does not perceive some level of attractiveness.
Okay. Wow, dude. She thinks that the gods, I guess, created her to be the most beautiful person on planet Earth to appeal to every person from every continent or whatever. What the hell is happening right now? I am so blown away by the fact that somebody can actually believe this about themselves. This is the height of arrogance, isn't it? To think that you are the most attractive to every demographic of people. She's not even that attractive. Like, sure, okay. Yeah, she's pretty, I suppose. But, you know, she's not the most pretty. It's just bizarre. It's just bizarre that she has this mindset in the first place.
Level of attractiveness. Thus, they'll pay attention. It's sort of funny to feel like I'm a giant science project.
Jesus Christ, dude. So anyway, that's Teal Swan. I've got more that I want to show you from her. There's somebody in my audience, Lord Falconis, who drew my attention to Teal Swan. Now, I've talked about her many times before, but Falconis has been following Teal Swan for like a long time and is like really involved in this. So if you want to see more stuff from Teal Swan or about Teal Swan or whatever, you can check out Lord Falconis' channel. I'll pin his comment to the very top. Now, Lord Falconis did not, to my knowledge, write this specific article that I have up here. This is the bite model breakdown, the full bite model breakdown of Teal Swan to determine if it is a cult or not. And I've gone through this before on my channel. Again, it's most definitely a destructive, controlling cult for sure. I don't know exactly who was involved in this. I know a couple of the people, and to my knowledge, I don't know that they'd want to be named, or I would give them credit. But again, if they do want credit, just comment below, and I will mention them in a pinned comment, at the very least. So let's take a look through a couple of these absolutely nutty videos and see what else she had to say for herself. She made a video, apparently, where she talks negatively, I guess you could say, about teacher hopping, quote unquote, where you should find a teacher, which... Incidentally, you've found one, right? Because you're listening to Teal Swan right now. And she discourages you from hopping to another, naturally. Yeah, check this one out. This is 2014 when this came out from Teal Swan. Title is Autism. Understanding Autism, Autistic Children, and Autistic Adults. Teal Swan. I will give you a spoiler alert. She knows absolutely nothing about these subjects. But okay, let's listen.
This video is going to be about autism. For thousands of years, the human species has been left-brain oriented.
No, that is meaningless, actually. That has no relevance or importance or meaning in science at all. It's completely made up, but okay.
Has been left-brain oriented. All this means is that humans have been less connected to their eternal aspects.
I have no idea what that means or how she would know it, and I wouldn't. You know, we all come here and have the same information. We all have the same experiences and the same connection to the ethereal, or whatever you want to call it, which is none. She doesn't know any more about the ethereal realm than I do.
They've been more physically manifested, more focused into the physical dimension. But being this left brain oriented reduced our capacity for right brain thinking. It reduced our awareness of our connection to source energy. But over the last 1,000 years, many in your human society have...
In your human society, you catch that? What she just said? Many in your human society? Again, she believes herself to be an Arcturian, some kind of a special alien that was sent to planet Earth, reincarnated 5 times to, like, be the most attractive to everybody or whatever.
But over the last 1,000 years, many in your human society have desired to have that connection with the eternal self, with source energy. And so we are coming into a reconnection of sorts with our right brain, with our eternal aspects. Because of this, some people within your society have come in and chosen...
Again, your society. You catching what she's putting down over here?
...chosen not to activate the portion of their DNA which allows you to phase completely with the physical dimension.
I don't even know what that would mean. Phase with the physical dimension? Is that what she said? What does that even mean, phase with it? I don't understand. Oh, I guess I'm too stupid to understand, right?
Autistic people are not phased completely with the physical dimension. What this means is they have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of physical reality.
Like the hokey pokey, kind of.
Having 1 foot in and 1 foot out of physical reality means that there is much more energy flowing through their bodily system. That increase of flowing energy through their body creates an increase in neural activity.
Okay, the thing is, she has no idea how any of this works. She doesn't have any more information on this than anyone else. She's completely making this up right off the top of her head. And you know what? That could be excusable as some kind of a bizarre mental condition if she weren't dragging so many cult followers along with her and exploiting them financially. I think I could overlook it and forgive it as just a nutter butter screaming to herself if she weren't dragging so many people down with her.
This increased activity causes the bodily system to become overcharged and overstimulated.
Like, who paid for the graphics? Who did these graphics for her? Is this stock footage, or does she have some cult members who are good at animation, who are willing to do this kind of thing for her? And where did she get the money to do this? She certainly exploited people, right? To get this?
Which is why we begin to see the classic expressions of impaired neurological function that are the basis of autism, things like seizures, difficulty performing routine motor tasks, nervous gestures or tics, and other anomalies of nervous system function.
Anomalies, she says.
The nervous system, especially the brain, is the translator between non-physical and physical.
Okay, great. You know what? If that's true, then we should have some evidence of it, right? We should be able to access some kind of anything at all. Okay, you can't see the wind, but you know it's there. And how do you know it's there? You see its effects. You can see the things moving around. You can feel it on your skin, right? Show me something, anything. I don't need to see any physical evidence of this, okay? I will take anything. Give me anything at all, please. Now, this obviously is not the first time that she's been accused of being in a cult. Like, I've accused her of that, and tons and tons and tons of other people have. I stand on the shoulders of giants, if you will. I mean, all of this legwork was done long before I even got here. I have largely built the work that I've done off of the work that they did. So I can't take credit for this. Like I said, Lord Falconis and others. Again, I don't feel comfortable naming some of the others because they may not want to be named. But there were many before me who put the heavy lifting in. Anyways, Teal Swan was famously accused of being a cult leader. And in somewhere around 2020, she put out a video about being a cult leader and what her response was to this. Now, I just showed you a few examples. In the cult world, we use a model called the bite model generally to determine if somebody is in a cult or not. The bite model stands for, it's an acronym, behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control. It's the 4 ways in which you control somebody to keep them subjugated within this cult. And the idea is, if you don't control them in all 4 ways, then they will reach out in one of those other ways to figure out what's happening to them. If you don't control their behavior, they will go off and leave and find something else to do. If you don't control them emotionally by regulating who they're allowed to talk to, their friends and family, they'll reach out to friends and family to help them figure out what's going on. If you don't regulate their thoughts and the information that they take in on a daily basis, they will look outside of the cult for this stuff and find information and possibly risk leaving. That's the idea. Now, there are other models that are used to determine if people are in a cult or not. What she's about to talk about is something called the ICSA model. It was created by the International Cultic Studies Association, which is a valid model, but I feel like it's a little bit outdated and a little narrowly focused on religious groups, when there aren't just religious groups that turn into cults. Like, look at QAnon. There's a religious component to it, but it's very much a political cult. The ICSA model does not apply to QAnon because it's not a religious cult. So for that reason, I don't use the ICSA model. She is about to use that. But let's listen to what she has to say about being a cult, and we'll go from there. Check this out.
In today's world, there's a lot of fear about cults, and understandably so, because in the past we've had more than a few seriously tragic incidents involving them. But this has led to a kind of a collective paranoia, which makes it so that people throw the word cult and cult leader around like a subjective catch-all term.
Some people use it a little too much. I don't feel like calling Christianity a cult is fair. I don't feel like calling Islam a cult is fair. I feel like you got to get more specific than that, but okay.
This paranoia has in fact led to people accusing me of being a cult leader and the people who follow my material of being a cult.
They most definitely are, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, I mentioned the bite model earlier. As I said, I stand on the shoulders of giants. Somebody already went through the entire bite model and analyzed with sources exactly why she's a cult leader and why this is a cult. I mean, they have links to every aspect of behavior control. Like, through promoting dependence and obedience, Teal's referred to herself as a symbolic representation of authority. I mean, some of the stuff that we watched earlier, you know, the teacher hopping video that I talked about, there are a ton of examples of promoting dependence and obedience. You know, modifying behavior with rewards and punishments. There are a billion examples of this, too. Dictate where and with whom you live. I mean, this is just under behavior control. There are a billion examples under each category. It's definitely a cult. But okay, let's keep listening to her explanation for why she's not actually a cult.
That's a very serious thing to say. It's something most people don't really understand.
That's correct. I, however, do understand it, and I understand how serious it is, and I'm still calling you a cult leader, Teal.
And therefore they don't understand the seriousness. Now, for this reason, I want to address this fear that people have. I want to address these accusations head on so that I can hopefully put some of your fears to rest. The fact that the word cult has become such a subjective catch-all term
it's used colloquially as a subjective catch-all, but experts still know what it means and still have ways of defining it, and you fit within the definitions. I'm sorry.
Having a rational conversation around cults, pretty difficult.
No, it's not difficult. It's difficult when people are throwing the subjective colloquial version at you, but experts know exactly what it means and know that you qualify as a cult leader without a shadow of a doubt.
Now, cult originally was not a derogatory term. It didn't actually have any negative connotations. But, like with a lot of language, it does today. Cult used to be simply a word that was used to describe a group of religious people. In the 1900s, it became a term to describe a group of people who demonstrated excessive religious devotion. Now, it's a derogatory term used as an attacking ad hominem to discredit, invalidate, and dehumanize spiritual or religious groups.
By some people, it's used in a derogatory way, but it's not used in a derogatory way in every context. By psychology professionals, it's not used that way. Psychologists understand what the word means, and they understand what the difference is between a cult and a religion and just a social group. Okay, she's trying to blur the lines and make it seem as though, you know, whatever, nobody really knows what it means. It's just an insult and that's it. And that's why it doesn't apply to me, because it's insulting to me. Okay, that's just not a valid excuse. I'm sorry.
People use the word loosely and flippantly as an insult, not knowing just how serious an accusation this really is. In today's world, if all it takes to be a cult leader is to have a devoted following on social media and therefore...
That's not all it takes. That's not what qualifies you as a cult. That's not the thing that makes you a cult leader.
...for lots of influence on public opinion, then every celebrity could be accused of being one. When most people are using the term cult or cult leader, they're not actually working with a solid definition or even a solid list of criteria. Instead, they're using feeling or association. This is very slippery territory. And this slippery territory we found out during...
Talk about slippery, right?
...the witch trials. Back then we found out just how dangerous it was when we didn't have proof, only accusations. As we know from back then, the feelings and associations that made...
You're picking up what she's putting down, right? This is her attempt to say that people are going on a witch hunt against her. She's basically saying the exact same things Donald Trump says about himself in the media and all that, except she's saying it in more flowery language.
Someone convinced that a person was a witch were usually not based on anything other than a person's own insecurities. For example, let's say a male judge was threatened by the idea of a female in power. He would condemn a woman as a witch when she tried to change the law regarding inheritance and land tenure.
And now she's trying to portray this whole situation as something you can't objectively know. They couldn't possibly objectively know back then that witches were real or that somebody was a witch. And just like that, today, you can't objectively know if somebody is a cult leader. That's simply false. By the criteria that we have laid out in the scientific community, the Bite model and others, to determine if somebody is exerting undue influence or destructive influence over somebody else. She's a cult leader, plain and simple. She can try to squirm out of this as much as she wants, but that's just what it is.
We have to be very, very careful that this paranoia that we feel towards cults and cult leaders does not turn into a modern-day witch hunt. For this reason, for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to use an established and widely accepted list of criteria for cults as the basis of our conversation. The first thing to understand before I go any further, I am a personal transformation revolutionary.
That means absolutely nothing. I have no clue what a personal transformation revolutionary... What the f***? What is she talking about? Those words have meanings individually, but when placed side by side, are completely meaningless.
I am not a cult leader.
Yes, she is.
Teal Tribe is a shared personal growth community based on the information and the material that I create.
Right. Teal Tribe is this weird little insular group of nutter butters that all get together and talk about how much they love Teal Swan. So, yeah, there's that.
Teal Tribe is not a cult.
Yes, it is.
2 PhDs, Yanya Lalich and Michael D. Lanagan, in association with the ICSA,
Right, this is the ICSA model that I was referring to. It's called ICSA, not ICSA.
created a cult checklist, a way to tell if a group is in fact a cult or not. I'm going to focus on their assessment for the sake of this discussion.
Again, I don't know why she chose this model when it's really not commonly used today. It's just as valid as any other, but it hyper-focuses on religious groups, and in my opinion, it's kind of missing some points that it could have that would make it more accurate and objective, but okay.
The following list is a collection of behavioral patterns that are commonly found in cultic environments. 1. The group displays excessively zealous and unquestioning commitment to its leader, and whether he is alive or dead, regards his belief system, ideology, and practices as law.
I don't know how she could possibly deny this about Teal Tribe and herself.
I ask that people have unwavering commitment to themselves, and part of this, which is a cornerstone of everything that I teach, is in fact questioning.
Oh, I see. Yeah, this is a common technique with cults. They say, our people are supposed to question everything. Jehovah's Witnesses say the exact same thing. When in reality, the tenets of the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses says, you're only supposed to question very specific things and only in specific contexts. You're not allowed to talk to outsiders. You're not allowed to bring up subjects that are touchy with the religion or any of that stuff. It's very similar with Teal Swan. The people have a very linear, top-down hierarchical belief system that they really can't deviate from. They're not supposed to deviate from it. There's a very specific culture within this group that you fit into or you don't fit into the group. It's one or the other. And she knows that. She knows that the culture in this group is very linear, top-down, and strict. Now, she can claim all she wants that she encourages people to, quote-unquote, question everything. But that's just nonsense, and she knows that it's nonsense. That's basically how she goes about the entire thing in this whole video that she does on whether or not she's a cult. Absolutely absurd from top to bottom.
Unless you're questioning things, including yourself, most especially yourself, and the things that you're learning, there's no way to find out what is true for you personally, and so there's no way to actually build a life for yourself that is in alignment with your authentic truth. On top of this, I offer my perspectives as perspectives, not as law.
Yeah, she can say that all she wants, but the people view her as somebody higher than God. They view her as an alien species who came to Earth to deliver a special message to everybody and made herself extra beautiful so that she'll appeal to people from every continent. Remember? She has absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, built herself into something bigger than human being. She can try to deny that all she wants. It's just false.
2. Questioning, doubt, and dissent are discouraged or even punished. I encourage questioning.
Again, with the encouraging questioning, she can say it all she wants, but does the culture back that up? No, it doesn't.
Questioning is, in fact, what I'm all about. My series, Ask Teal, is all about questioning. Me on stage, it's all about questioning.
Look, asking you questions so that you can give people answers and doubting or questioning the things that you say are completely different from each other. And she knows that. She's trying to obfuscate and confuse the matter to make herself seem less like a cult leader.
I find doubt actually to be quite healthy. Doubt is going to be the basis for personal expansion.
Right, so she's going to get you to doubt your doubts about her group. That's a quote from Mormonism. And she's going to get you to doubt all of the things that you previously believed about society and life and human beings before coming into her group. But doubting her as a leader? Oh no. That's not acceptable. Never was.
Doubt is a necessary condition for finding one's personal truth. Dissent does not lead to punishment. There are people who are perfectly welcome in this group that I have of people who follow my material, even if their opinion differs from mine. And if you spend time in my forums long enough, you'll see that this is the case.
I mean, she DMCAs people all the time. I'm not afraid of being DMCA'd because I have enough money to challenge that if need be, all the way to court. But she DMCA's smaller creators to create something of a chilling effect, to prevent anybody from criticizing her directly if at all possible, first of all. And second, her followers attack people like rabid wolves when they criticize her. Dissent, criticism, questioning, none of these things are actually allowed within her little insular group. She can say they are all she wants. She's lying.
Oftentimes, there's conflicting viewpoints. Now, it's my belief that conflicting viewpoints actually leads us to higher truth when we're able to have a constructive conversation about it. 3. Mind-altering practices are used in excess and serve to suppress doubts about the group and its leaders.
This couldn't possibly apply any better to Teal Swan. Seriously, this is exactly what she does. Meditation and all of this other stuff. I mean, just look, I was on her website earlier and this little pop-up appeared trying to get me to buy these 5 guided meditations. Look, get 5 free guided meditations right at the top. Boom. I didn't even click the link, by the way. I just clicked the website and it popped up. That's what it's all about with Teal Swan. That's what it's always been about.
No consciousness-altering states are encouraged by me or used by people who follow my material for the purpose of suppressing. Why?
Oh, for the purpose of suppressing. Isn't it convenient she slipped that little thing in there?
Because suppression is something that I actively teach against. All of the practices, tools, and processes which I teach are designed specifically for the opposite of suppression.
Sure. Okay.
They are designed specifically to help somebody find things like freedom, peace, clarity, health, and authenticity. 4. The leadership dictates, sometimes in great detail, how members should think, act, and feel. For example, members must get permission to date, permission to change jobs, permission to marry, or leaders prescribe what types of clothes to wear, where they can live and can't live, whether or not to have children, and so forth.
See, this is part of behavior control, and this largely only applies to a hierarchical, top-down, centralized cult. Now, a while back, I wrote this article on my website. The article was titled The Extremism Gradient. Actually, I wrote it February 27th, 2020 is when I published it on the website. The idea here is that there are many different types of cults that don't really perfectly fit into the centralized, top-down, hierarchical system that you find in, say, Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormonism or whatever other thing. So I wanted to find some explanation for what we find on social media. I mean, think about anti-vax groups, for example, right? Now, this is actually written and published before COVID hit and became a big thing. And I was talking about anti-vax groups and how they turn into cults quickly. In any cult, you have to have some kind of a hierarchical system that allows people to move up a chain of authority. So in, say, anti-vax mom groups, in social media groups, Facebook pages and stuff, how does that happen? And in my opinion, the answer is they create a feedback of who can say the craziest, most unhinged thing imaginable. Everybody around them upvotes them. Everyone likes the post and comments on it and pushes it to the very top. And in this social media group, whoever has the most top posts, whoever has the most clout in this group is the person that finds themselves at the top of the hierarchy effectively. That is how social media groups can become decentralized cults. Now, I separated cults into 3 categories: centralized and non-focused, which is what I was just referring to, not focused on a very specific person. Then there's decentralized but focused on a single individual from whom they get all of their information, who's the final authority on everything that they believe. That would be like your Donald Trumps and your cult of personality, basically. Teal Swan probably falls into that category. And then you've got centralized or hierarchical cults, which is Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology, Mormonism, a very top-down, structured organization that has, line managers, generals, leaders, people like that. And that's what the BITE model really applies to heavily. I call them level 1, level 2, and level 3 cults in that order. Anyway, if you want to give this article a read, in my opinion, I thought it was pretty interesting. I also did a video on it and applied it to veganism forever ago, because veganism isn't really, centralized cult like that exactly. It's not a top-down hierarchical structure with, leaders and stuff. But they do have very uniform beliefs right down the center, right? Like, everybody believes these very specific things. And every single vegan, even if they don't all follow the exact same rules, all have opinions on the exact same things, right? Like, will you eat honey or not? And there's a rationale for eating honey or not eating honey that every single vegan has heard in their lifetime. That's kind of the idea that I'm talking about. So in that framework, in my opinion, Teal Swan is most definitely a level 2 or a tier 2 cult. Decentralized, but focused on a central figure from whom they get all of their information. Now, she wants to use the ICSA model rather than the BITE model or some other model that is more valid in today's psychology world. That's okay. It still applies. Whether she likes it or not, all of this stuff still applies to her. Whether she wants to accept the fact that she's a cult leader or not, she is. Just out of curiosity, though, let's take a look at her financial exploitation, because that seems to be a key component of every single cult leader and cult organization out there. Going back to the BITE model that somebody wrote, this is the section on financial exploitation. Despite having been issued with a cease and desist order following the demonstration of her completion process on YouTube for practicing therapy without a license, Teal continues to host workshops despite that fact. Yeah, I guess you probably just changed the name of workshop to something different, or change the context to make it more legal. While it is no secret that Teal runs a for-profit organization, a need for her products and events and her followers fostered by agitating pre-existing mental health conditions and various other points of pain. Teal speaks on issues related to mental health often and appears to offer her content as a solution to that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just earlier we were talking about understanding autism, autistic children and autistic adults, right? And she seemed to believe that she had some kind of special insight into this about the left brain, the right brain, and all that, when she didn't. She's completely full of it. She had no idea what she was talking about. It bears mentioning again that Teal has no formal qualifications or education on how to actually help her followers with their mental health concerns, and former members have reported having experienced worse mental health while following Teal's advice. The kinds of things she offers and the prices of those are as follows. Now, this is a little bit older, so take it with a grain of salt. You're going to want to look this up yourself to get accurate modern pricing. But in 2017, Teal hosted a curveball retreat where she charged $5,000 for a single room, or $4,200 for a shared room at Philia Center in Costa Rica. Holy shit, dude. That is nuts. Who has that kind of money, for real? Teal offers training in her completion process despite the cease and desist order and charges $2,400 for it. She pretends to be a psychology expert when she has no training in this. None. She talks about shadow work constantly. That's like her whole big thing. You got to work on your shadow self. And she doesn't know anything about it. You know, shadow work or the shadow self, it was mentioned in a song by Tool, which, by the by, is my favorite band. The song's name is 46 and 2. The shadow is a concept introduced by a psychologist named Carl Jung. He and Sigmund Freud were competitors in large part. Unfortunately, basically everything that Freud and Carl Jung taught was completely made up. It was garbage. It's been discredited 1,000 times over by now, over the years. They had no idea what they were talking about. That doesn't mean that their contribution to the field was not relevant and valuable. They legitimized psychology. as like a real thing, and that's deeply appreciated. But almost every theory that they put forward was garbage then, and it's garbage now, including but not limited to the shadow self. It's nonsense. But she latched onto it and refused to let it go. Carl Jung came up with this shadow self thing that she is constantly talking about, doing shadow work and all that. If you're triggered, you have to do the completion process or shadow work, and it's treated as the perfect time for it. Shadow work is completely made up. It's a concept that she leans into despite the fact that it has no legitimacy within the psychology community. She claims to have all of this insight into psychology when she has no idea what she's talking about. So she exploits people financially constantly, has been for years. And she's got 1.5 million subbies now on YouTube. I remember when she had, 500,000 or something. She's about my size. And over time, slowly but surely, she grew and grew and grew past 1 million subbies. Then they released a documentary on her on Hulu. They actually took a clip from one of my live streams and played it in the Hulu documentary on her. It's called The Deep End. It's kind of interesting if you want to give it a watch. Exposed her for who she is. A fraud, a scam artist, a cult leader. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. Should I cover Teal Swan more? I'm honestly disgusted by Teal Swan, who she is, the things she believes, and the stuff that she does. It's grotesque. Emily Sigmund, she's trying to use this as an excuse to squeeze in how beautiful she thinks she is because God. Truly pagan levels of vanity in that one. Oh, absolutely. But she doesn't really conform to, like, the standard traditional Christian belief system or whatever. So vanity isn't really a problem in her mind, I guess, because she's an Arcturian or whatever. You know where I've heard the word Arcturian before? You know what? I'm just coming to realize now. I know where I've heard the word Arcturian before. Oh my God, dude. I totally forgot about this. Okay, there's a QAnon cult leader named Romana Didulo, I think is her name. Yeah, Romana Didulo. And I follow her on Telegram, right? Telegram's where all the nutter butters go to spread their nutter buttery all over everything. Well, she claims to be an Arcturian, an alien race, basically lizard people who can disguise themselves as something beautiful to take control of governments and all this other garbage. You know the claim about lizard people controlling the world? Hillary Clinton's a lizard person, so is Gavin Newsom, so on and so forth. Well, Romana Didulo, this QAnon leader, claims that she is also a lizard person, but she's a lizard person for good, a.k.a. an Arcturian. Dead serious. Teal Swan claims to be an Arcturian, and so does Romana Didulo. These people are nuts, man. They need tinfoil hats bad. Like, real bad. It's a big thing in the New Age UFO community. Okay, I didn't know that. I'm sorry if you mentioned this. It just got here. Did you see her Wikipedia page? It looks like she paid people to puff her up and got in trouble. No, to puff up her page and got in trouble. I didn't hear about that. Okay, apparently there was some controversy with her Wikipedia page. I did not hear about that, but I guess now her Wikipedia page has some kind of level of objective information on it. A number of publications, including E! Online, The Guardian, and the BBC, noted that some of Swan's teaching methods on how to manage mental health issues had been found controversial by her critics, which Swan and her supporters deny. Swan and her teachings are the subject of documentaries and podcasts. That is not a fair representation of the situation. That's entirely too tame. Okay, let's just kind of look through the Wikipedia page out of curiosity here. They're saying Swan as though it's her last name. It's not, right? No, her name is Mary Teal Bosworth. Why are they calling her Swan? Like it's a last name. What the hell? Swan was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1984, was raised in Logan, Utah. Swan's described interactions with the mental health profession in childhood. In her early childhood, she received therapy from Barbara Snow. Okay. Yeah, there are a ton of citations needed through all of here, and a when question mark. That's really interesting. Wow. Okay, interesting. So there's like a link to some of the podcasts that have been about her. The Deep End, episode 1. Gizmodo, they did a thing, an episode on her too. Oh, here's another one I forgot about. Her teaching methods sometimes guide participants to envision their own deaths, occasionally by... In 2019, Lebo DiSecco from BBC cited Swan's viewpoint on it. In the video, Swan urges those who are feeling to seek medical help, but goes on to say that in her experience, for some people, this may not help long term. She instead suggests that it's been seen as our safety net or our reset button that's always available to us. Because remember, she believes in reincarnation. It's a reset button. If you go out the way being described here, you'll just come back. It's a reset button. Start over. If your life's bad enough, why not? That's the way she framed it. Disgusting! Absolutely disgusting. She argues that viewing it in this way enables people to set the idea aside and instead concentrate on what they can do to make themselves feel better in the present. That's nonsense. Complete nonsense. And that was one of the biggest points of contention with her teachings. That's one of the things that drew the attention of like BBC and others, was when she started telling people to basically do it. I think she's a true believer, but she's also absolutely obsessed with herself and exploits people financially. Whether she's doing this cynically, knowing that she's exploiting people and doing it anyways, I don't know. But probably not, honestly. She seems like a true believer, but it doesn't really matter to me at the end of the day. She's exploiting people. That's what I care about. And it needs to be addressed.